Mountains and fields, forests and streams, it was a place of peace and tranquility, yet it was shattered by a series of roars. Roar! Beginning with that single sound, the howls continued endlessly. Within the boundless forest, monkeys shrieked, whistled, and beasts stampeded, as if disturbed by something, breaking the stillness of the night and fleeing in all directions. It was early summer, the nights long and quiet. At this late hour, it should have been a time of peace, with all lights extinguished and everyone immersed in sleep. Yet, one village stood in stark contrast. Within this village, there was anything but slumber. Inside the village, cries of anguish echoed incessantly, and amidst the flickering flames, countless figures darted about. Indeed, the village was engulfed in flames, a sea of fire spreading throughout, consuming some who were asleep and unable to escape, leaving them to perish without a trace. But some, due to their nature, had not fallen asleep, and thus desperately fought for survival. Hey, there are still some who escaped the net, but it's decided, you will all die today. Don't blame me, blame Lin Tianmo for his greed for what he shouldn't have possessed. A figure in black amidst the flesh coldly declared, sword rises, sword falls. A flash of blood erupted, splashing into the firelight, making the flames seem even brighter. The blood of vile men is fit only as fertilizer, the man in black said indifferently. The blood on his long sword instantly flicked away into the firelight, as if you were utterly disgusted. Junior brother, don't be reckless. Master's instructions are paramount. Another man in black approached, seemingly to dissuade, but with more impatience. As if the delay was suffocating him. A pack of insignificant ants from the mundane world. I can't contain my anger without slaying them, the man in black said. But what good will killing them do? Lin Tianmo's whereabouts remain unknown. A hint of worry on his face. Senior brother, I know Lin Tianmo well. His arrogant and laughably bases his actions solely on righteousness. If he sees us slaughtering common folk like this, his anger will surely ignite. Hell come to us, the man in black said. You're right, but this place isn't far from the LingLong temple of the Buddhist sect. We must proceed with caution, the later arrival said. Rest assured, senior, even if Buddhist internal strife is rampant, and the LingLong temple is divided between Chan and esoteric Buddhism, what can the Western Pure Land do about it? We are disciples of the Taoist school. Before the man in black could finish, he was interrupted by his senior brother. Junior brother, some things are best known only to ourselves. However, right now, everyone in this village is dead or injured, yet there's no sign of Lin Tianmo. Could it be that he's really escaped this fora? While Lin Tianmo is quite strong, he has attachments. His wife just gave birth, right here in this village. I don't believe he could abandon her. Besides, we pursued him immediately after he escaped the ancient forbidden land, leaving him no time to prepare. Then could it be that the fire just now killed him? Senior brother, with your strength, a half-step Nirvana realm cultivator, would you perish so easily in a fire? Don't forget, Lin Tianmo's wife isn't human. But junior brother, want this incite Lin Tianmo's ferocity? Consider his strength. Senior brother, why worry unnecessarily? Precisely because we know how powerful he is. We must do this. It will throw him off balance, perhaps even drive him to madness. This isn't the first time. If it weren't for that person's intervention, Lin Tianmo would have died that time. The man in black spoke, his gaze piercing through the sword light, reflecting a sharp gleam. Then, when has thrown off balance and driven mad, well, use the sect's ultimate treasure to subdue him. After that, want the treasures of the ancient forbidden land be ours? Ha ha! The man in black let out a maniacal laugh, as if he had already witnessed Lin Tianmo falling at his hands. A clever plan. In that case, let's add fuel to the fire. If Hez truly watching from the shadows, he must be frantic right now. So, we'll round up all the survivors and kill one every incense stick's worth of time. Then let's see how Lin Tianmo chooses to react, said the senior brother. The man in black sighed, a smile spreading across his face. He then immediately ordered his men to round up the survivors in the village. Meanwhile, 30 miles away within a cave, a man clad in blood-soaked clothes wore an expression of intense pain. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair disheveled, and he seemed consumed by overwhelming self-blame. Linji, don't be like this, it's not your fault. Beside him stood a stunning woman, her face bearing a touch of alluring yoikai, a captivating and slightly wild beauty. A captivating charm tinged with a heartbreaking vulnerability. Chua, I'm sorry to you, to Yuna, and to the thousands of villagers of Linjeshuang. I didn't kill Bo Ren, yet he died because of me. My heart is filled with guilt. Tears welled up in the man's eyes. Men don't weep easily, only when their hearts are broken. This man was Lin Tianmo, the one the man in black had been anxiously awaiting. Lin Jiashuang was his entire world, his family. Years ago, the loss of his close friend, a hermit who vanished without a trace, had extinguished his desire for the monastic life. He thus retreated with his wife to his ancestral home in Linjeshuang, but man proposes, God disposes. He sought tranquility to escape the bloodshed, and had other plans as his wife neared childbirth. News from the cultivation world sent a shockwave through him. A secret from an era before, a relic of an ancient cataclysm, had been discovered in an unknown location. Initially he dismissed it. Only a message from someone he knew changed his mind, compelling him to return to the world of cultivation. In that primordial land, he did find the person he sought, but their meeting was brief. The person gave him an object, then shattered a gateway leading to a deeper, more ancient realm before vanishing. His search for them proved fruitless. He intended to bury this secret within his heart, to treat the whole experience as a mere dream. But pursuers blocked his path, convinced he possessed a remarkable treasure, and at that moment, the object given to him emitted a brilliant light. This solidified their belief that the item was a supreme treasure, perhaps even holding the secret to ascension. But Lin Tianmo would not surrender it. for it was a gift entrusted to him, with strict instructions for its safekeeping. Thus, without a word. Fortunately, Lin Tianmo's cultivation was formidable, and he managed to fight his way out of the encirclement, but he never anticipated the relentless pursuit that awaited him, hence, the current situation. Perhaps you're overthinking things, the woman advised. After all, they're all from reputable sects, they shouldn't do anything too excessive. As long as we stay hidden, we should be fine. But Lin Tianmo merely shook his head. Chua, you don't hurt. The cultivation world isn't as simple as you think. To obtain this object they'll stop at nothing. By now, Lin Manor is likely under their surveillance. Therefore, I must return, Lin Tianmo said, shaking his head. At that moment, he was unaware that Lin Manor had already been reduced to ruins. Even the few who managed to survive had become either victims of their blades or bargaining chips in their cruel game. But brother Lin, if you go, and something happens to you, how will your wife? And tried to dissuade him, but ultimately held back. She knew that even if she tried, she couldn't stop him. Don't worry, Chua. Keep this safe for now. When I return, well, leave this place forever, Lin Tianmo spoke. Then picked up the long sword on the ground. He cast a tender glance at the woman, a look of reluctance replacing the tenderness as his gaze lingered on the swaddled babe in her arms. He offered a faint, wry smile before turning and leaving. But this departure was to be his last. A day later the woman stood watch, gazing expectantly at the mouth of the cave. 3 days later, her tears seemed to have dried, her eyes vacant and hollow as she stared in the direction of his departure. A month later, the woman had lost all her former radiance, a mere shell of her former self, a living corpse. Her only purpose was to care for the child in her arms, and to endlessly gaze from the cave mouth, yearning for his return. Finally, one day, when the supplies Lin Tianmo had left in the cave were entirely depleted, the woman seemed to make a momentous decision. A flash of hatred ignited in her eyes. Carefully, she drew something from her bosom and fastened it around the infant's neck. My child, you must lie, finally spoke, her words like a farewell. Then, clutching the infant tightly, she transformed into a streak of light, fleeing the cave. He moved with incredible speed, a blur, a phantom, leaving behind him the faint illusion of 9 snow-white tails. Finally, passing a stretch of ruins, she paused for a moment, letting out a whimper, tears welling in her eyes. But after a brief moment, she resumed her flight. Running for dozens of miles before stopping again, she gently laid down the infant in her arms, wrapping it in lotus leaves, then infused the leaves with a burst of energy, causing them, along with the baby, to float on the river, drifting down. Only when the infant had completely vanished from her sight did she resolutely turn and flee into the depths of the forest. Chapter 001 The Monk, the Rescue. A small bridge, flowing water, withered vines, and a lonely crow. The setting sun and the rising moon hung in the sky, a tranquil and delightful scene of the midsummer twilight. The only discordant note was the sound of playful splashing and laughter echoing from within the deep valley. All right. So not only is your name feminine, you dare throw water at me! Prepare to face my mighty Vajrapalm! A bald boy, shouting loudly, brought his palms together with practiced precision and slapped the water's surface. A sudden surge of clear waves rushed towards the boy who had just splashed him. Wow, Li Hasheng, that's not fair. Just because you started before me and your cultivation is higher, you bully me like this! The boy named Zhongshawa protested, wildly splashing water with his hands. For a time, the two of them chased and splashed each other. A lively scene. Giggle, senior brother, junior brother, stop it. The sun's setting, and the water's getting cold. Let's go back. If master finds out we snuck down the mountain, we'll be standing on post again. Another bald boy approached, calling out to the pair. It turned out that the children were young novice monks from LingLong Temple on the mountain. Tired from their daily practice, they'd come out to play. At that moment, a faint sound of weeping reached their ears. Whoa, the cry was unusually low, like a baby's, but with a strange demonic quality. But two of the boys were still engrossed in their play. The boy who had just intervened, however, froze, his face contorted as if he had just recalled something terrifying. Brothers, did you hear that? Something's crying, the young monk said. Wang Qinggo, what nonsense are you talking about? There's no crying. Liao Xing's face tightened. He stopped his work and looked at the young monk who had just spoken. Brother, I'm not lying. I really heard crying, Wang Qinggo insisted, his eyes urgent, on the verge of tears. Lai Xiaohua's faces changed upon hearing Wang Qinggo's words. Wah, wah. Another wave of low, mournful cries echoed, casting a sudden chill over the midsummer stream. The three young monks, jolted, scrambled out of the water, hastily pulling on their clothes. Like men possessed, they fled towards LingLong Temple. After they left, the low wailing gradually enveloped the little stream. Lai Hushing and the other two tumbled and crawled, finally reaching the gates of LingLong Temple half an hour later, collapsing in exhaustion and crying for help. Master, help! The mountain demon has appeared! Lai Hushing burst into LingLong Temple and headed straight for his own meditation chamber. Besides being his place for daily practice and meditation, it was also where, at this hour, his master would be achieving enlightenment under the starlight. Wang Qing and the other two followed closely behind, breathless and silent. After all, they were still children, even though they had been practicing for some time. The several dozen miles they had just run was still too much for them. What is this frantic display? As my senior disciple, you haven't even mastered this level of composure. How can I expect you to carry on my esoteric Buddhist lineage in the future? At that moment an old monk before him glared, his voice a thunderclap of rebuke. Master, it wasn't that I lacked decorum, but that something truly terrible happened, Li Haoxing said, adding another sentence for fear his master wouldn't believe him. After evening prayers day, the three of us went to find a clear place to practice together, but we suddenly heard a low, mournful cry. I remembered Master once saying that this was the sound of a mountain ghost, vicious and malevolent, so we ran back as fast as we could to report it to you, Master. As Li Haoxing spoke, he subtly signaled his junior brothers, clearly intending for them to step forward and explain, but Wang Qing and Zhang Xiaowa were still too timid. They pretended not to see, their heads bowed low, saying nothing. Practice, I think you were out playing, the old monk said coldly, his gaze, his displeasure palpable. Li Haoxing knew he couldn't hide it from his master. Wang Qingguo and Zhang Yahua's incompetence further fueled his irritation, but irritation aside, he knew he could keep it a secret any longer. He immediately confessed their trip to the stream, truthfully recounting the events, though he stubbornly maintained his earlier claim that the crying sound was that of a mountain ghost. So, you only heard crying and saw nothing, the old monk, his brow furrowed. No, Master. The sound was exactly like the mountain ghost you described. I'm certain it was a mountain ghost. It must be connected to the Lin family village, dozens of miles away, that was reduced to ashes a month ago. Their lingering resentment must have summoned the mountain ghost, Li Haoxing explained. Young but with quite a bit of knowledge of strange things. You three, wait here. I'll go investigate and then punish you, the old monk said coldly. Then, his figure vanishing in a flash, the three young monks looked at each other in bewilderment. Wang Qingguo, you two scoundrels! I asked you to explain and you both became mute. Li Haoxing's voice, filled with fury, echoed from before the meditation chamber, followed by two screams. Meanwhile, the old monk, following Li Haoxing's account, leaped swiftly through the mountains, reaching the foot of the mountain and the spot where the supposed mountain ghost appeared. But there was no sign of anything amiss. The moon hung high, its reflection shimmering and dancing on the surface of the stream. Nothing unusual, but above this place, a living being did indeed pass by. That trace of life, there's no mistaking. The old monk's eyebrows furrowed, hardening. His gaze moved past the water's surface, no longer lingering, following the current downstream. Woo woo. Another low wail drifted in. The old monk sat upright, listening intently, his ears twitch, as if he were employing some technique to hear more clearly. It's a baby! The old monk instantly determined that the cry was not some mountain demon, but clearly a weeping infant. The reason it was so low was because it had cried itself out of breath, even running on the water's surface, walking on the waves. In a few strides he reached the area where a lotus leaf floated past. The old monk leaped, rising to his feet, and already held the infant in his arms. Chapter trusting an orphan 10 years. It was infused with demonic energy. No wonder the lotus leaf could float on the water without sinking. The old monk's eyes shifted, widening before a gentle light emanated from his hands, dissipating the demonic energy clinging to the lotus leaf. To be enveloped in demonic energy, the child must have been in considerable distress, yet the energy felt more like a protection. The younger monk was somewhat bewildered, but it was, after all, an infant swaddled in its wrappings. As a man of the Buddha, he felt duty-bound to save it. Never mind the origin of this demonic energy, or why it would shield a human child. It is a life, and I, as a monk, cannot turn my back on it. The older monk muttered to himself, then carried the swaddled infant away. But his direction wasn't towards the Tianlong temple. He was heading towards a small town, and seemed quite familiar with the place. Quickly finding a dwelling crate, gently pushing open the door, the monk entered. Second Master, what brings you here? Initially, a wave of surprise washed over the inhabitants of the house. Unannounced and uninvited, the unexpected visitor's audacity sparked anger. But upon seeing it was the great monk, replaced by welcoming smiles. Amitabha Buddha, I have come today to ask a favor of you too, the monk said. Second Master, where is such talk coming from? You are my second master. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to settle down in this small town, the middle-aged man replied, his face a mixture of constraint and profound gratitude. It's rare. Now that I have entered the pure land of Buddhism, I naturally wouldn't meddle in worldly affairs without cause. However, today, I come to offer you a karmic blessing. As the monk spoke, he handed over the swaddled infant. Second Master, this child. The middle-aged man paused, turning. You need inquire further. You only need to know that regarding this child, you must not ask a single question. Simply send him to Tianlong Temple when he turns 10, the monk instructed. Understood. Second Master, I shall follow your instructions. The middle-aged man replied. Excellent. Remember, do not ask, do not speak. Furthermore, you must not act as the child's father, not even his adoptive father, the monk emphasized. But, what if he asks about it later? The middle-aged man said. Noticing the abbot's furrowed brow, thinking he had displeased him, he quickly added, Second Master, I just spoke without thinking. It's all right. If the child ever asks, tell him you simply performed an act of kindness. Unable to bear seeing him so young and adrift. As for after he turns 10, you will send him to Tianlong Temple, far from here, never to return, the abbot said solemnly. Seeing the man's astonishment, he added, this is for your own good. This child's future karma is heavy. If you are too deeply involved, you might not have a good end. If that's the case, Second Master, why should we even take him in? Wouldn't it be better to just let him fend for himself? The middle-aged man asked. Fit himself. You think too simply. Buddha is merciful. Just do as I say, the abbot chuckled, saying. With that, the abbot hesitated no longer, uttered a Buddhist chant, and turned to leave. Time flies. In the blink of an eye 10 years passed. The turmoil in the martial world gradually subsided. The uproar caused by the earlier chaos dissipated into the past. The river moon cast its glow. July's fiery sun blazes. Midsummer night, stars twinkling, frolicking birds chirping. stirring the charm of nature loose. That's the name of this town. While not wealthy, it boasts a tranquil charm, nestled by mountains and water, homes stand in quiet repose. At this hour, the time of Zi 11 p.m. 1 am, is still considered early. Therefore, the streets remain brightly lit, filled with laugh, anger, shouts, and the cries of vendors. This cacophony, however, masks the argument within one particular household. Damn it, that good for nothing! He's driving me mad! I shouldn't have listened to your second uncle back then. A middle-aged man spat coldly. Father, let it be. Don't bother with that boy anymore. Your agreement with second grandfather was only to raise him until he turned 10. Hef. You haven't broken your promise. A boy no older than 14 or 15, said Pinga. That may be so, but you must understand, our family's current standing is all thanks to your second uncle's care. If it weren't for his kindness, we would have perished at the hands of those Zhang thugs long ago. I had planned to send you to Tianlong Temple to become a monk, and upon your return we, father and son, could potentially become a prominent family in Lusu. But Alice, your second uncle said you lacked the aptitude for monastic life. The middle-aged man said, a hint of regret in his voice. Pinga at these words grew visibly pale. He wouldn't forget 4 years ago, when he was sent to Tianlong Temple. The head monk merely glanced at him and dismissed him with a single sentence. A resentment bloomed in his heart then, a burning need to prove himself. For 4 years he secretly honed his skills countless times, all to make the old monk regret his decision. But ultimately some things depend on talent, not all efforts yield returns, so he gave up. Therefore, upon learning that his younger brother, who had inexplicably arrived 10 years ago, had been destined by the old monk, he vented all his resentment on his younger brother. Initially, his father tried to stop him, but ultimately blood ties prevailed over gratitude. Over time, he joined his son in making life difficult for the child entrusted to them by his second uncle. It can be said that he barely had enough to eat or wear. Even worse, by this time, beatings were commonplace. The slightest displeasure resulted in a brutal thrashing, and the reason for his anger today was that his son told him the boy had built a hut in the wilderness outside the city, clearly intending to sever ties with them. If he could truly sever ties, he would naturally be delighted. But thinking of his second uncle's instructions, he felt apprehensive. If he failed to deliver the boy to Tianlong Temple within 10 years, or if anything happened to the child, his second uncle would certainly not let him off lightly. That damned boy. When I get my hands on him, the middle-aged man said, rising unsteadily to his feet and casually throwing a coat over his shoulders. Chapter 003. Boy, stay home and wait. When your mother returns, tell her to rest early. I'll go find that boy. The middle-aged man said, a touch of anxiety in his voice. To be honest, he was truly afraid. He feared something might happen to the child, and he feared the wrath of his second master. If only I hadn't agreed to the second master's request. It's clearly taking on a demanding master, the man muttered resentfully, but still left the house. After he left, a barely perceptible flicker of panic crossed his son's face. Outside Lusu City, by the Lusu, a small figure huddled beneath a large tree, silently gazing at the stars. Under the starlight, his eyes shone with an indescribable intensity. It was as if one were looking into the endless expanse of the cosmos, profound, dark, yet capable of stirring the heart. The movement of his eyes held an inexpressible comfort. Behind him stood a small thatched hut. It was called a hut, but it was nothing more than a ramshackle structure, lacking any proper frame. Moreover, it had long been inundated by the river. It was uninhabitable, and even approaching it would leave one feeling uncomfortable. Therefore he could only sit beneath the large tree, silently gazing at the sky. Why did Brother Ping treat me like this? His voice was childish, yet within that childishness his confusion and heart were evident indeed. This child was the boy who had been scolded by the father and son earlier, the child entrusted to this family 10 years prior by a monk from Tianlong Temple. His name was Lin Yun. This name was later revealed by the old monk after he went down the mountain, informing his nephew. This family, however, bore the surname, so Lin Yun knew from a young age that he was an outsider. He was all the more well-behaved, careful not to speak much or to interrupt. He only ate until he was half full, never truly hungry, never asking this family for anything more. Even his clothes were hand-me-downs from a boy in the family, the eldest son, Ping. At first, things were relatively good, but when he turned 6, everything changed. His own misfortune followed. After the master of the house took his eldest son out, his attitude changed. At first, it was his son who would tease him, deny him food, and humiliate him in various ways, even resorting to beatings and curses. The master would only make a token protest later. He wouldn't even bother, sometimes even joining in the beatings and abuse of Lin Yun. Lin Yun silently endured all of this. He simply believed he hadn't done enough. Therefore, he always held himself to extremely high standards, never daring to overstep his bounds, always accepting whatever came his way. But within 3 days, the younger brother in the household, Li Ping, seemed to have changed into a different person, becoming kind to him. He would not only offer him food but also take the initiative to play with him, especially today. He even said he would take him to the river to catch wild game. A 10-year-old child is inherently greedy, their sense of right and wrong isn't fully developed. Lin Yun felt nothing but gratitude and excitement towards Li Ping's actions. He believed that his long suffering had finally touched the hearts of this family, touched the heart of his younger brother. Unexpectedly, upon arriving, Li Ping suggested a contest. Whoever could build a thatched hut the fastest and best would win. Lin Yun was overjoyed at the prospect. He threw himself into the task, but when he finished, fearful and overcome by the heat, he sought refuge in the shade beside his newly constructed hut. He waited and unknowingly fell fast asleep. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself bound inside the hut he had built. He struggled and tried to shout, but his limbs were tied, and his mouth was stuffed with weeds. Instinctively, he knew he'd fallen into the hands of criminals, just as he was summoning all his strength to break free. He noticed water seeping through the cracks of the hut. The water steadily increased, and the airless straw, now soaked and baking in the heat, caused Lin Yun's consciousness to fade, a suffocating feeling washing over him. He struggled desperately, his shouts reduced to muffled whimpers. He could understand why if had truly encountered villains they would resort to such a cruel method. Am I just a child? In his memory, those vicious people were all ferocious demons, 8-foot-tall monsters, capable of obliterating his soul with a single blow. Why must he torture himself like this? Just as his consciousness was about to slip into unconsciousness, he suddenly heard a voice from outside. Li Ping, are you sure there's a roe deer in there? Instantly, Lin Yun's consciousness flickered back. He recognized the voice. It belonged to Zhang Xiaopeng, a boy who often bullied him in town, a fat boy, just as his name suggested. Yes, of course. Listen, this whimpering sound, it's clearly the water we poured in, making him uncomfortable.
What, Zhang Xiaopeng, aren't you scared?
It was Li Ping's voice. Lin Yun instantly opened his eyes. He was timid but not foolish. He was tolerant, but he understood the truth. Li Ping, this was an attempt to kill him in an instant. Lin Yun felt utterly wronged. He had endured, he had conceded. Even when hungry and cold he never complained, always persevering, yet the other party intended to put him to death. Humph, I hope so. If I find out you've deceived me you'll regret it. Alright. 6 buckets of water should do the trick. Even a wooden wolf would survive that, let alone a robe. But it's strange, there's a hut here, and a robe seems to have crawled inside. Zhang Xiaopeng asked doubtfully. Well, maybe someone passed by and built this hut to rest. As for the robe, I saw it with my own eyes. Its leg was broken. It probably hid in the hut because it felt safer there, Li Ping declared confidently, his voice still trembling, but much improved. Alright. He'll believe you this once. Let's go lads, back to drinking. We'll have robe meat tomorrow, Zhang Xiaopeng said, gesturing for his companions to leave slowly. Even Li Ping didn't hesitate, departing with Zhang Xiaopeng. Meanwhile, Lin Yun inside the hut had fallen into a deep unconsciousness. Chapter 40. Uncle Li. Wuyuklusu River, bathed in moonlight. Not far away a trembling boy leaned against a tree, his eyes filled with confusion. Why is this happening? He roared, the sound seemingly trapped in his throat, inaudible to others. This youth, naturally, was Lin Yun. The events replayed in his mind, and he could understand why Li Ping had wanted him dead. He couldn't recall how many times this scene had played in his head. The only certainty was that he couldn't go back. And then, Lin Yun couldn't fathom how he'd survived, how he'd escaped, how he'd been brought to this large tree. Was it a miracle? Lin Yun wondered. At his age his mind was full of fantasy. Having escaped death he naturally attributed it to divine intervention. Otherwise how could he have survived? Moreover, Lin Yun's guess wasn't entirely unfounded. Since childhood he'd known of a small tower-like tattoo on his chest, but now it was gone, replaced by a small, golden tower. Did you save me? Lin Yun murmured, stroking the small tower. Then, gripped by a nervous fear of its disappearance, he pressed it tightly against his chest. Only this small tower seemed to offer him a sliver of warmth and security. Meanwhile, amidst a hazy chaos, a young man in white robes sat listlessly on a bed. Foolish, ignorant, weak, how unlucky can I be? I swear, I'll only save you 3 times in this life. After that, unless you possess enough charm to win me over, you're on your own until you die. Then I'll find someone else, the young man in white said with a look of disgust. The nature of this space is unknowable, and the identity of this young man in white is a mystery. His bed, like a cloud, was pure white and soft as cotton. Coupled with his attire, he was the very picture of a pampered young master. Nature, This kid strange. He carries the scent of Lian Shan. That eccentric fellow caused endless waves in the divine realm, and this kid has his aura. I need to be careful. But this place is definitely not the divine realm. Even the divine realm's wasteland is a million times more spiritually vibrant than here. Ah, bad luck. It looks like achieving my goal will take a long time. Whatever, Tine. I hope this kid has some good fortune. With that, the young man in white drifted off to sleep. As he slept, Lin Yun suddenly felt an emptiness on his chest. His eyes flashed, and the small tower hanging around his neck vanished once more. Lin Yun caught. For now the night grew deeper and colder. He had fallen asleep under the tree, his body nearly drained by hunger and cold. Only sleep offered him a modicum of respite. Suddenly, a shout jolted Lin Yun awake from his slumber. You brat, are you trying to die? Do you think you've grown wings and can set up camp wherever you please? What, do you think my Li family hasn't treated you well enough? The speaker was Li Xuanhuan, the father of Li Ping and the man who had taken Lin Yun. Unsure what to say or how to respond to the imposing man before him. Gradually, Lin Yun's body trembled in the moonlight. He couldn't tell if it was from the night's chill or the oppressive feeling emanating from the burly man. What? You're not going to say anything? I haven't even lost my temper yet, and you're giving me the silent treatment. Brat, if it weren't for second master's instructions, I would even bother with whether you live or die. A flicker of displeasure crossing his eyes. For years he had grown accustomed to Lin Yun's meek acceptance, to having him as a convenient punching bag. But now, something seemed different. Lin Yun dared to remain silent. Lin Yun stared coldly at the burly man. Countless memories flashed through his mind. He harbored little hatred for this man, feeling more gratitude than anything else. Yet he still couldn't go home, dared not go home. This time, he'd narrowly escaped death. He didn't know if he'd be so lucky next time. Gradually, Lin Yun's eyes grew clear and he asked softly, Uncle Lei, if I go home, will you kill me instantly? The air stilled. It was a question from a 10-year-old child, not an accusation, but more of a plea. The clarity in his eyes would move even the most hardened warrior, much less Li Shuangyan, an ordinary man. Li Shuangyang's expression changed. Looking at Lin Yun, the anger on his face vanished instantly, replaced by bewilderment. His gaze softened suddenly. He felt a pang of guilt towards the child. Once upon a time, he had cherished this child like a treasure because of a single word from his second master. Lin Yun's understanding had brought him more laughter over the years. Suddenly, he felt Lin Yun was pitiable and self-hateful. Lin Yun was an orphan, and what had he done? In a flash, Li Shuangyang's heart filled with self-reproach and guilt. He berated himself for having lived like a dog all these years. His own son lacked that kind of luck, so what did it have to do with Lin Yun? He had shifted his anger and resentment onto Lin Yun. It was a despicable act. He reached out his hands, wanting to embrace Lin Yun, but Lin Yun instinctively recoiled, causing his gesture to fall short. Li Shuangyang's eyes flickered. He stood frozen in mid-air, a mixture of awkwardness and reluctance evident on his face. In this moment, he knew that in Lin Yun's heart, he was no longer a loving father but a villain. He chuckled awkwardly. Oh well, he said, I suppose this is where our paths diverge, but Lin Yun, I still want to say sorry. You've suffered so much these years, Li Shuangyang said, his eyes filled with a blend of reluctance and regret suddenly. His face contorted with discomfort. He looked at Lin Yun and said, you asked me before if I would kill you? Chapter 005. The reason. You asked me before if I would kill you, Li Shuangyang asked instinctively. He felt that Lin Yun must have experienced something significant, otherwise, such a drastic and sudden change in attitude would be impossible. Lin Yun was dubious, but after all, he was just a child, his heart pure. Moreover, Li Shuangyang's earlier actions had softened his heart. Immediately afterwards, he recounted everything that had happened that day. However, he concealed the conversation between Li Ping and Zhang Xiaopang. But Li Shuangyang, a man who had weathered the storms of life and was well past his prime, instantly guessed what had happened. Ungrateful son, that ungrateful son, he dared to commit such a heinous act! Cough! Li Shuangyang cursed, a violent cough racking his body as his emotions surged. Uncle Li, instinctively, Lin Yun reached out to support Li Shuangyang, patting his back as he always did. Forget it, I don't want to dwell on it, but I won't be going back. Perhaps, to care for you, Uncle Li, anymore. You must take good care of yourself, Uncle Li, Lin Yun said. His mind was made up. Li Shuangyang's change in attitude warmed his heart, making him feel as though he had returned to those years ago. Truly like a family once more, but he knew after all he was just an outsider while Li Ping was his own blood. If, because of him, any unpleasantness arose between father and son, Lin Yun wouldn't want that either, and if he were to return, it would surely strain their relationship again. Even if Li Ping wouldn't make things difficult for him, a rift would still form between father and son. Lin Yun didn't want to see that happen, so he decided not to go back. Child. Li Shuangyang felt ashamed as him. Lian's were like a slap to his face. A 10-year-old child was considering him in every way, while he himself had been so difficult. Uncle Li, don't say any more. I'll never forget your 10 years of raising me. And I know, deep down you still care for me, otherwise you wouldn't be here by the river at this late hour, Lin Yun said. It's true that Li Shuangyang had been cold, even distant, towards Lin Yun these past few years, but the human heart is tender. How could he truly abandon him? Very well then, Uncle Li won't hide it from you. It's all because of the matter of your training at LingLong Temple. Li Shuangyang knew that Lin Yun was determined to leave, and that even if he wanted to keep him. Moreover, his son harbored ill intentions towards Lin Yun, and if Lin Yun stayed, it would not only do him no good but would harm him. Thinking of this, Li Shuangyang revealed the story of the late abbot entrusting Lin Yun to his care. Lin Yun's eyed as if in disbelief. At this moment he heard Li Shuangyang say, now that you've turned 10, that scoundrel, my son, has likely developed the desire to take your place and thus harbors ill will toward you. In this. But if you can't forgive him, I'll kill him tomorrow to atone for his crimes. Li Shuangyang looked at Lin Yun with unwavering resolve. Lin Yun shook his head slightly. Forget it, Uncle Li. Since it's all in the past, let it be. Lin Yun didn't intend to hold a grudge. He felt he could never repay his adoptive father's kindness, and even though Li Ping had harmed him, he couldn't cause Li Shuangyang any more distress. With that, Lin Yun no longer insisted and returned home with Li Shuangyang, planning to set off for LingLong Temple at dawn the next day. Unbeknownst to them, after they left, a figure appeared on the otherwise tranquil river surface, dawning the sky hazy. As if to underscore a partout, the heavens were unkind. Not until evening did the sun cast its faint light from the western sky. Uncle Li, please don't see me off, go back. Your kindness in raising me, Lin Yun, will never forget. When I achieve my goals, I will certainly not forget you. Lin prostrated himself in a formal bow. Regardless of how Li Shuangyang treated him all these years, Lin Yun felt gratitude in his heart. Li Shuangyang's face showed a teasing expression. His cheeks. The more well-behaved Lin Yun was at this moment, the heavier the guilt and remorse weighed on Li Shuangyang's heart. Child, Uncle Li is sorry. If not for my momentary lapse in judgment, you wouldn't had to endure such hardship all these years. Shielding Lin Yun from the sun with his own body, offering his own shade as a refuge from the light, it was a silent expression of remorse. But Lin Yun understood perfectly. He knew that the Uncle Li of old had returned, showering him once more with the purest, most paternal love. No, Uncle Li, please go back. Ping should already know he needs to repent. In the future you must teach him well. Even if he doesn't practice martial arts, there are still other paths to success. Hearing this, Li Xuanyang's expression changed, secretly thinking that even at his age, he was still not as insightful as a child. After all, his network and connections, cultivated over a dozen years, were. Even after sending Lin Yun away, he had already secured his escape routes. He planned to leverage his connections to guide Li Ping, ensuring a quick re-establishment of their fortune in another town. Yes, rest assured, I will carefully guide Li Ping in the future and prevent him from going astray. As for you, entering this mountain gate will undoubtedly bring countless hardships. Li Xuanyang hesitated, wanting to say something, but ultimately chose silence. He dared not ignore the advice his second uncle had given him years ago. Once Lin Yun was sent away, they must leave this place immediately to avoid attracting fatal danger. Therefore, he swallowed the words back down. Perhaps, this parting would be their final encounter, a separation that could be considered a living death. At the root of it all, he was just an ordinary man, with his own convictions and helplessness. Otherwise, how could his attitude towards Lin Yun have shown such a drastic change? Fortunately, he managed to awaken to his better self, rekindling his former affection, allowing Lin Yun to feel a glimmer of paternal love. He didn't know that this change of heart would save him from a catastrophic disaster in the future. But that's a story for another time. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I finally arrived at the stream below Tianlong Temple before nightfall. A 1,000-mile journey must end in parting. Li Xuanyang had intended to personally escort Lin Yun up the mountain, but the sight of the imposing temple gate only intensified his sense of guilt. More importantly, he saw a monk by the stream. This episode is complete. Welcome to subscribe. Turn on the small bell forward. Please leave your comments. I will continue to update the content behind.